From SCNR.com, Missouri AG sues New York prosecutor Alvin Bragg over Trump hush money case. Quote, "We have to fight back against a rogue prosecutor who is trying to take a presidential candidate off the campaign trail." Attorney General Andrew Bailey tweeted, "I will be filing suit against the state of New York for their direct attack on our democratic process through unconstitutional lawfare against President Trump. It's time to restore the rule of law." Bailey's lawsuit is the latest in a series of actions by public officials seeking to address apparent impropriety in the targeting of Trump for criminal prosecution. This spring, House Judiciary Committee called New York's prosecution of Trump an unprecedented abuse of prosecutorial authority and a politicized prosecution. Bailey suggested in a separate post that New York County District Attorney Alvin Bragg charged Trump in a bid to negatively impact his odds of re-election in the 2024 election. Now, it's the little things, right? This is not criminal charges against Alvin Bragg, which I think they should go for right away. But it's a start, it's a constitutional lawsuit. I will take it. I'm glad someone in a red state is fighting back.
Well, it's going to be Bailey because he's the one who fights back against everything.
Yeah,
he's tough.
We need more.
He's tough. We need we need red state prosecutors from across the country doing stuff like this. It's really egregious to continue to see just the blue states going after, conservative pundits and politicians. And,
why do you think that red
protesters.
states AGs don't act?
I think there is sort of a disconnect going on. This is something I was talking to Jack Posobiec about recently. There's like this disconnect, this idea that, you have to play by the rules. You have to have very specific principles. And he's always like, principles without power is basically just totally useless. You know what I mean? So I'm glad to see Bailey doing this. I'm glad that Congress is dragging Alvin Bragg in for a subpoena. I think it's stupid that it's July 12th instead of prior to
the trial.
The former president being sentenced. I think that's ridiculous. But yeah, more red state prosecutors should be doing this. It's not reasonable that this is going on. And this is something Charlie Kirk was talking about too. It's the Democrats have a machine. Not, the conservatives have a movement, but the Democrats have a machine.
And Andrew Bailey's interesting because he really is active. I mean, he's gone after Planned Parenthood. He's gone after a lot of issues. I think he is someone who feels as though he is representing the interests of his state and the interests of the people who live there. It seems like so often people are afraid of losing office if they stand up for sort of conservative values.
Who is he going after? IBM, Planned Parenthood? Who else?
He had
Joe Biden with the free speech stuff. Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like I see his name every couple months being like, I'm taking action. I did feel this way about Patrick Morrisey in West Virginia. I felt like he was really on the ball for a while. But again, we didn't see any turn to the Trump aspect of this. I think it is good for them to prioritize what's going on in their state. On the other hand, what is happening as people go after
standing, but yeah.
So this morning, we had a very fun conversation on the Culture War podcast over at Tenet Media. And, normally we go 2 hours, but the third hour just went into it. Andrew Wilson and I were fiercely debating the prospect of social collapse, decay, civil war, civil strife, etc. And I don't know how much was accomplished with the arguments that were made, but the arguments that I usually make are things like this, interstate lawfare and interstate conflict, are indicative of the breakdown of social order. I mean, let's do the time travel test. I love it. If you went back to 2017 and said in 2024, right before the election, Missouri will be suing New York for unconstitutional prosecution of the presidential frontrunner, accusing them of trying to stop him from being able to win the election through state-level criminal action, who would believe you?
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
And now it's happening. I mean, Trump is guilty, they said, in New York. We haven't even had the election yet, and we're already getting interstate legal conflict.
Well, and at the end of after the 2020 election, we had interstate legal conflict, but the Supreme Court refused to take it up when Texas teamed up with some other states and sued Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania wasn't following their constitutionally written obligations with regard to how voting should be conducted. And the Supreme Court refused to take that up, which was lame. Yes.
So what's the end result of things like this? I'll put it this way. If no one does anything, then fine. Like Andrew Wilson's premise was, he said Biden will get elected, Trump supporters will grumble and do nothing, and Democrats will expand their control, and that will be it. It'll be over. Mm-hmm. And we had Richard Spencer on as well, and he said that he thinks it will be the last election.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that, and it definitely it does feel like we're at this crisis moment, and there's so many clashes that are looming ahead of us. But there's also the propensity of human beings to want to be at the end times, to want to imagine that they are at the most essential crux of history. So are we at the most essential crux of history? I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that the guys in the trenches in World War I thought they were as well.
But they were.
And they sure were.
I mean, and there's a lot of arguments to be made about whether we should have not been involved in World War I. But as Norm Macdonald put, hey, the good guys have won every war. Now, his point is, the people who win will declare themselves the good guys. But the point is, there's a resolution to a mass conflict when those conflicts happen. And at the time, it is the biggest problem. If there's a hostage situation, that's the most important thing in the world to that community where it's happening.
But nobody notices, for example, Darfur is about to explode again.
Yeah.
And no one's paying any attention to.
My point is, for the United States, with lawfare, criminal actions against the front runner for the presidency, we are in the most dire time. But let me just stress this, too. I mean, never before has a president been found guilty of 34 felonies, of a felony at all, been put on trial, been threatened with prison. All of this is unprecedented. We can entertain the idea that this is the beginning of it becoming normal. And now every 4 years, it is whoever's in power arrests all of their political opponents. But
That
certainly
is Banana Republic.
And that leads to something, doesn't it? So if the next stage of this collapsing empire is we get 40 years of every 4 years, the dominant power starts arresting as many of their opponents as possible.
We see that happen in other nations. That's going on in Brazil.
Well, and I think
they fall apart.
Yep.
I think some people feel as though it's justified, right? There are people who feel as though this empire is bad, it's systemically racist, and horrible things all the time. We should probably see the end of this version of America, right? There are people who don't like the country the way it is, or they don't like any of sort of the traditional values or customs that we have, and so emboldening them to hasten on the chaos, hastening decay actually works to, again, a certain ideological, I would say, progressive faction's advantage. I think this is one of the things about being on the moment of end times. I think you're right. Everyone thinks this is the most critical moment of history, thing that I'm living through. And when you don't know until the history books are written. But for some people, they are ushering the end faster because they want it. They want this to be over. And other people look at this like the destruction of something good and that should not come.
You know what's weird to me? It kind of feels like the end of... Oh.
Your mic's not on.
I'm not on.
Carter's actually chilling here too.
I usually am here. We just put a camera here today. Still not on? Okay.
Still not on.
Oh, that's all right.
Carter started talking.
It's I think this is Vocal Mic 1.
Vocal Mic 1?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not working?
All right. Well, never mind.
Bye, Carter.
How's it going? Well, Carter is handling the music production. There he goes. He's over there because we're going to be doing the music soon. And he was trying to chime in, but, we're going to need that one to work, so.
Yes.
See, end times all around us. But
I know, right?
Somebody wants it to be the end time.
Yeah.
It seems like, too, as Americans, we have this bubble that we're in that everybody thinks that it's never going to happen to us. We look all around the world, and we're like, nah, that can't happen here.
Yeah, because we have built our civilization up so big and so high. I was thinking about this during COVID, when we just started watching things start to collapse. And it was like, I started to think, why isn't it collapsing faster? And it's like, because we have built it really big. It would take a lot to collapse it. Even just the little things, it's a massive cascade effect, but we're seeing increase in home foreclosures. It's harder for people to buy homes, harder for people to stay in their homes. And that is such a huge component of what the American dream is all about. You can buy a home, you can live there with your family, you can raise a family in a secure and safe place. And when that's what's crumbling, I always think for Americans, if you can get dinner on the table, that's what you're going to do, and you're not going to worry about the rest of it. But at the point when you don't have a table to put dinner on, then you're going to have trouble.
Yeah.
So real quick, I do understand people can hear. The issue is that Carter's mic isn't coming through the headphones. Right. Anyway, continue, sir.
No, I was just going to say, the idea of the American dream everybody talks about is not the same today, especially for young people. It is not the same that it was.
Although I talked to my son, which I know I use him as an example for a lot of things, but like he is little.
Get it,
friends or
Libby.
whatever.
You're a mom. You have a kid.
Whatever. He's like, I want to grow up and be a dad and like have a family, and he's been saying that since he was little.
But I think that's actually not as common. Like it's probably y'all's
and I have
relationship.
talked about this.
We have talked about this because I remember when I talked to all of my friends and it became increasingly more common for them to be like, I don't think I want any kids. And now I hear, my younger sister's friends like talking about how kids are inconvenient or whatever else. There's obviously a conversation going on about like having a family is a burden. And I think that you hear that similarly about property ownership. Obviously, housing prices are crazy expensive. I think they just hit an all-time high today. But
there's
all
interest, right?
Interest rate. I mean, there are obstacles, but also the idea that you would have things that you buy, build, and make better, right? You buy a house, you add value to it, you maybe pass it down, you maybe sell it. That helps your family, which you have also put time into cultivating. These are all part of building blocks of a society. And when everyone around you is saying, well, kids are bad for the environment and you'll never own a house, so don't even think about it. And also probably your job is useless, so quit that. Like there is no momentum to move forward. And again, somebody benefits from that. No one just promotes this idea unless they're getting something out of it. Thanks for watching this clip from Timcast IRL. Make sure to check out the live show Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. on this channel. Subscribe and we'll see you all there.